Now we wait for where Baylor is going to go for their bowl game, finishing the season with 6 straight wins, ending at 8-4. It's been an awesome turnaround, but there's still business to be done. Okay, this is not Kansas. All right, we play in bowl games. It's not Oklahoma State, okay, or Utah. We play in bowl games around here. Well, this year we do. And all the projections are coming out. Brett McMurphy is the one that people follow the most from the Action Network because he does a daily bowl, or excuse me, a weekly bowl projection. And a lot of the experts are picking Baylor to go to the Texas Bowl down in Houston, something they've done a couple of times. Always a great time. You can get a bunch of Baylor fans in there. And it's not one of those New Year's days, but it's also not like December 23rd. It's after that. I think it's New Year's Eve again this year. Now, who they're playing is up for debate. Obviously, the invites have not been set out yet, but most of the experts have Baylor in the Texas Bowl against Arkansas or against LSU. Seen that a couple of times. The one that you're not seeing a lot of outside of ESPN is the only one of the major ones that I have seen that have gone with this, and it's Kyle Bonagura, who is doing this for ESPN. He has them going to the Texas Bowl and facing the Texas A&M Aggies. That would be awesome. That would be perfect for this really fun year where, you finally beat TCU again. You beat West Virginia and Morgantown for the first time ever. You're hotter than fish grease going into this thing. What better way to have a Texas Bowl, not a college football playoff or a New Year's Eve bowl, but to have that against Texas A&M and take back the Battle of the Brazos? That would be perfect. What more could you ask for? Baylor, A&M, Houston, bowl game. It's too perfect because it's not going to happen. Let me save you the trouble of the anticipation. Baylor's not going to be playing A&M in Houston for the Texas Bowl. And it's not Baylor's fault. This lies at the feet of the Aggies. They want no part of Baylor. They have no interest in playing the Bears. In fact, they're terrified to play Baylor in the Texas Bowl. It ain't going to happen. We have seen the Aggies dodge in-state opponents for years, regular season, postseason. They couldn't keep that UT rivalry alive for 13 years because they just had too much tough sledding in the SEC West. The SEC West is good, right? That's probably not going to happen. But how many times over the years did we see that projection, A&M and UT, in this bowl game, the Texas Bowl? Felt like every other year we saw that because those teams were 7-5. A lot. And the one I remember in particular is 2014. Texas played Arkansas in that game and had like 50 yards of offense. It was really bad. Arkansas killed them. And there was a ton of momentum for there was a ton of momentum for Texas to play A&M in that game. I think A&M was 7-5. Texas was 6-6. It matches up perfectly for the Texas Bowl. Instead, A&M just magically had a date with West Virginia in the Liberty Bowl in Memphis instead. And that raised a lot of red flags, if you guys remember this, a decade ago, because it was like, why would that benefit them? Why wouldn't they play a game in their backyard with their biggest, alumni base and play an old rival? That's awesome. That's a real way to juice up what is otherwise a pretty forgettable bowl game. A&M didn't want to do that. They didn't want to play UT for the same reason they don't want to play Baylor this year. And for the same reason that they don't want to play TCU or Tech or UH or anyone else from this state. Because if they lose to those teams, especially outside of UT, because they're in the conference now, but if A&M loses to any one of those teams in state in a bowl game, they don't know when they're going to see them again. And they don't know how long they can hold that over A&M. Because for a decade, they wouldn't touch anybody in state at this level, at the FBS level, because they're in the big bad SEC and you're not. And we can use that excuse whenever we want, no matter how bad we underachieve, no No matter how much money we throw at recruits and have the best NIL collective and have a national championship head coach, no matter how bad we suck after that, we can say, well, it's because we did it in the SEC. You guys, you just did it in your little playpen truck stop conference. And now they are going to avoid that at all costs because Baylor is one of the hottest teams in the country. They come in at 8-4 and they can beat A&M. They absolutely can. And A&M cannot handle that. There is no world where they will say, yeah, we'll just go and play Baylor in what is a quote-unquote meaningless game. Because if they lose to them, it could be another decade before we play A&M again. And they don't have the advantage over UT. They obviously do have the historical advantage over Baylor. And they got out at the perfect time to go to the SEC. Because Baylor was about to start beating that ass. They were about to start beating the hell out of A&M yearly with those Bryles teams. But they got out just in time. There's no shot they accept an invite to the Texas Bowl to play Baylor. No way. It'll be just like 2014 and a couple of times after then when they found another bowl game to go to that wouldn't have even suited them as well. 2014, they go to the Liberty Bowl in Memphis to avoid that UT matchup in Houston. Where does Brett McMurphy have them going this year? None other than the Liberty Bowl in Memphis to take on Kansas State. Because that won't hurt as bad. You know, they won't remember 98. This will be nothing. They won't hold that. We won't have to run into these people at work or on the road or at school. We won't have to run into any Kansas State Wildcats. But Baylor Bears, TCU Horned Frogs, Tech Red Raiders, we see those people all the time. We work with them. We coach with them. They're our nephews, our kids, our cousins, our brothers, our sisters, our parents. But Kansas State, no, it's not that way. We'll take Kansas State. We'll take it in Memphis too, to avoid being embarrassed by an in-state team in our own backyard. We'll take that. For what it's worth, McMurphy has Baylor playing Arkansas in the Texas Bowl, which would be a ton of fun. I mean, that's an old SWC thing. Arkansas's got a great fan base. They're also in a world of hurt right now. I mean, they're spiraling, that program, and they don't even want to be in a bowl game, I don't think. So maybe that's better for Baylor in terms of a guaranteed win, but it would be a ton of fun, specifically for this fan base. And I think for A&M's fan base too, to bring back the Battle of the Brazos in the Texas Bowl. But Mike Elko and Ross Bjork and the powers that be at A&M, no chance. No chance they want to do this. They have dodged the UT bullet for years, and you saw on Saturday exactly why they did that. They are not, quote-unquote, stooping down to the level of playing a in-state Big 12 team like Baylor. You know why? Because they're afraid. They're afraid of that embarrassment, and they are afraid that Sawyer Robertson and Bryson Washington and Josh Cameron and Matt Jones and Keaton Thomas and Caden Jenkins and Dave Aranda and their old pal Jake Spavital will BTHO the Texas A&M Aggies. But maybe that's just me. Let me know what you think. Let me know down in the comments below. And again, on YouTube, if you like the video, like the video. It helps out the channel a ton. But we will, of course, be monitoring exactly where Baylor is going to go in this bowl game and who they are going to play as that develops, specifically next week. Thank you for making it to the end of the video, and thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network part of your daily routine. We have got you covered with the most Baylor Bears athletics coverage of any outlet that's not directly tied into Baylor University. So if you want more of that, be sure to like and subscribe. Ring that notification bell to get notified every time we're dropping a video here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks, and sick 'em.